documentary. It's family emergency type stuff, and it's really not good. Okay, so intertextuality. Okay, so let's just briefly to revive what I had said about intertextuality. I need you to read through this, and the basic premise here would be that it's an absorption and transformation of another text into a new text, let's say. Now, when you think about a genre refers to another genre. Okay, that's why it's a genre. And that is an intertextual reference, okay? That's an indirect intertextual reference. So all movies and all films have intertextual references to some degree. But when you think about language, language is shaped by other language, and we reuse language, and it refers to other language in context and meaning, and literally shape and form. So all language is intertextual. Now, intertextual is something from a media studies perspective, and how it relates to us is something that is very specific and very contemporary in regards to the this notion of sort of reboots, remakes, and sequels and all that jazz. Like when you think about hybridity, and it's all kind of very kind of postmodern, and it does have a sort of a contemporary feel to it. But one thing about referencing other texts, sometimes you're referencing the other text in order to remind an audience that you're in a mediated reality, and that you're commenting on other texts to make a comment about your text. Now, that was the case when I talked about that still of Ted, the film Ted, where you could see Mark Wahlberg and the bear looking out and facing you guys, and I'd said, well, what does that remind us of? And it's like a sitcom, so it's referencing a sitcom moment in this particular film, and that's very much sort of what makes it this kind of postmodern-ish kind of feel to it. This does run counter to a dominant realist tradition where where you feel like you're stuck in the actual text. Okay, it's focusing not necessarily on reality, but beyond reality. Okay, this is a quote from Roland Barthes. I need you to read that, and I'm going to ask you a question to prove that you have read through that. Okay, now this is an example again, as what I was saying about intertextuality. This is a Quentin Tarantino still, and this is something he does ad nauseum. It's this crash zoom here. This is Leonardo DiCaprio, and this is crash zoom into his face. Now, this is similar to the crash zooms used in old martial arts films. Now, although this was a Western, set in Western times, it's from Django. He's utilizing sort of the same aesthetic to I guess suggest a kind of a dramatic moment, but it's very much about cultural influences. Okay, now you may say, why do we do this? What is the point of intertextuality? And some of it is just literally for the pleasure of viewing. Like when you think about Easter eggs in films, and even video games have a ton of Easter eggs. It's in a sense, it's to embed someone within the text, but also to it's about the reverie of experience of those particular texts. Parody and satire is also something that's defined, that would be a definitional part of intertextuality. Borrowing meaning, cultural context, genre references, text influences, these are all sort of elements of intertextuality. This is indirect intertextuality. This is Seinfeld, and although Seinfeld is not referencing directly, this is an old sitcom. It's I Love Lucy. There's indirect influences because it's the same codes and conventions. And that's why we recognize this as a sitcom, because of this previous sitcom text. This is noir, hard-boiled sort of fiction, the chiaroscuro lighting, and this is a contemporary neo-noir Sin City making direct sort of references to that text. This is a news channel from one channel to another, and they make indirect references to each other because of the codes and conventions. It makes it so that when I stick this on, I know what this is. It's a new show because I can point to an indirect reference to another show. So that's all indirect intertextuality. This is an expositional dump at the start of a Flash Gordon film, and this is the expositional dump at the start of Star Wars. This, again, indirect, but now this is direct intertextual reference, and this is a homage to Star Trek, and this is actual Star Trek. So what they're doing is they're directly referencing these other shows. Excuse me, this Directly referencing Deadpool is another, from Deadpool to the Joy Painting, another direct. Now, the easiest way to describe why, excuse me, a direct intertextual reference would happen, this is the best way to describe it, and I use this for all my classes. The Simpsons is the sort of preeminent postmodern show, and it's a great way to explain a lot about different texts. In this scene, Bart is being a doofus to his sister. And he's doing something mean, but it's very manipulative and nefarious, and he's almost being very villainous, okay? So he has this villainous plan that he's got against his sister, Lisa, here. Now, he makes a direct intertextual reference to Blofeld, who was also the evil genius, and you'll recognize him from, if you've seen Mike Myers films, the spy goof movies, right? So he's making reference to a villain in order to borrow his villainness, if that makes sense, okay? So although we understand the context of what's going on, Bart is being a jerk to Lisa, and he has this nefarious plan that he's doing no good. He's actually melts a little cartoon character here, as in holding the cat and so on and so forth. This is making a reference to the villains of Bond films, but it's in order to bump his own villainness at that particular time. And this is another great example here, because this is Burns being a crazed, sort of demented character, and he's literally got the same face mask as Hannibal Lecter, so he's borrowing. It's not just to suggest he's an evil old genius, but he's also he's borrowing this from Hannibal Lecter, okay? And this is a reference to Clockwork Orange. So it's direct. There's a direct reference to a particular character and a particular text. This is a shot for shot replay of the Psycho scene. Now, although the scene is that Maggie hits Homer with a hammer, it's playing on the notion of cultural reference here. They're calling attention to the fact that they're doing it, okay? This is a great little clip, a video we should watch about fanboy culture and intertextuality in Star Wars. But this is most important, and this link I'm going to re-up in an email to you guys on the discussion page. This is a great essay about weaponized intertextuality, okay? Now, I want you guys to describe and tell me what weaponized intertextuality is, so I'm not necessarily going to give you the answers here, but you've got to watch that this video, and it's a great essay about weaponized intertextuality, because although you might not necessarily get certain references in other texts, they mean something in and of themselves. Like, for instance, you might not understand that The Simpsons made a reference to that Bond villain, but you understand Bart was being a villain. Well, this is a slightly different aspect of intertextuality. It's playing on the emotional and historical notions of our connection with previous texts. And it's an interesting take on intertextuality. This is an interesting exercise here that I do with students. And these are two videos from previous times, okay? This is Miami Vice, and this was The Americans. And both utilized the music from Phil Collins, I Can Feel It Coming in the End of the Night. But if you look at the video and the cuts, they're explicitly the same. Alright, so you can hear the same song, almost beat for beat, same similar cuts. They're both playing simultaneously, okay? Now, Miami Vice is a text from the 80s. It's a TV show, and why this is important is that the video, this clip of the show, plays out an entire song throughout the actual episode, something that had never been done. Now, we're kind of used to those sort of video song montages from shows, from dramas, from teen bopper shows to like the CSIs and so on. Many of them sort of utilize this kind of aesthetic, you know, but it wasn't that well known back then, and it was something very very revolutionary, and it has a lot to do with the MTV generation sort of influence on television and video and film, etc. Now that's a well-known piece. It's very sort of revolutionary for its time, and it's a very well-known scene where they played the Phil Collins song throughout the scene. This is a contemporary show, about Russian spies, and this is the premiere show. This is the very pilot show, so it's an incredible, bold move by the Americans, not only to mirror this other scene, but literally swipe it, shot for shot. So what you kind of have to ask yourself is, yes, it's an intertextual reference, but why? And so that's kind of what I'm going to ask you guys. I want you to watch it and think about it. This is a quote about postmodernism. Postmodernism is important as we go forward. I mean, intertextuality is something that is beyond sort of the notion of realism. So Modernism is fundamentally the eclectic mixture of any tradition with that of its immediate past. It's both the continuity of modernism and its transcendence. And these are things that sort of definitional components of postmodernism and media. It's borrowed from the notion of realism and representationalism in art to look like something, and it's pushing stuff beyond that. Postmodernism tries to reflect an existence of objective reality, tries to reject that notion of reality and realism. Attempts to break it down distinctly between culture and society. So when you think about, and I'm going to skip this forward here, what we had talked about, high and low culture, this is all elements of postmodernism. The notion of mixing high and low cultures, intertextuality, bricolage, pastiche. I want you to read these and try and get some sort of understanding of what postmodernism is about. Postmodernism is all of these things, okay? When you think about theaters, galleries, museums, and this old sort of school notion of culture being observed, well, culture is actually within us and lived within us. So postmodernism is sort of a step beyond that old kind of tired look at what art is. Like, for instance, when I talked about Banksy and even certain music types, but when you think about graffiti, is graffiti art? And that's what postmodernism is trying to sort of convey. The implications are for realist forms of media. Since our sense of realism is now dominated by popular culture, how real is reality, and how real is reality TV, and etc. Like, for instance, we talked a little bit about this. We understand this is a fake burger down here, but we have somehow reconcile that. We know it's a fake burger, but it points to an actual burger, right? But we know through economic incentives and imperatives that the digital landscape changes things, like, for instance, touch-up photography and so on. But it does beg the question of what is real and what is not. Postmodernism is how it reflects in television is pastiche, tongue-in-cheek rehashes, spectacle in an ever-competitive battle for viewers. Television caters to basest and shallowest impulses to get attention. Faux TV, mystery, and the anti-hero. These are all sort of elements of where culture is pushing the boundaries, basically, on all this stuff. And to end this Prezi, I show you guys a clip, and that's the link down there. It's insane. It's a 5-minute clip of Borat basically walking around. Well, that's the actual link there. Okay, I cut and pasted it. Asking a guy to point out cheese to him, and it goes on for 5 minutes, and you will watch it. I mean, I encourage you to watch it, and I hope you think it's funny, but the point of it is that it's completely absurd, and it pushes the realm of acceptable sort of presentations of humor, of representation, and it's insane, sort of, slightly, but that's kind of part and parcel of postmodernism. Okay, I'm going to post this video explainer and the slideshow and questions that about this slideshow. I want you to do it as a lecture. Okay, this is Wednesday. This is due at the end of Wednesday. I apologize I can't be there. I believe me, I really would like to be, but I can't. I really, really appreciate your patience right now. It's sort of a difficult time, right, for me, and I please, please, please let's keep motivated. Let's keep going. I will see you next Monday, not next Monday coming because it's a holiday, but the Monday following, and you guys have to have your still frame analysis ready to go on that Monday. I'll be in touch via email. Please keep the faith. Please do your homework, and I'll see you soon. Okay, take care. Bye.